This is the primal scream of a dying regime.
Pray for our enemies, because we're going medieval on these people. You're just not got a free shot on all these networks lying about the people. The people have had a belly full of it. I know you don't like hearing that. I know you try to do everything in the world to stop that, but you're not going to stop it. It's going to happen.
And where do people like that go to share the big lie? MAGA media. I wish, in my soul, I wish that any of these people had a conscience.
Ask yourself, what is my task and what is my purpose? If that answer is to save my country, this country will be saved.
War Room. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
It is Wednesday, 26 August in the year of our Lord 2026. We're going to try to get to Michael Pact. It's the 5th anniversary of the Abbey Gate, I guess, massacre in Afghanistan. Michael Pact's done a new film. I've made a lot of films with Michael. We're going to try to get him for later in the hour. Joe Allen's going to join us. Eric Metaxas is on deck. Before we get too deep in the second hour, since there's so much confusing information coming out about Medicare, I've asked Kobe, the founder and CEO of Chapter, to join us. Since Chapter's done we've gotten such great feedback. I think over $1 million in savings to the War Room Posse just on the hotline 845 War Room. This is totally free and no obligation. But most important is that you get the right Medicare plan and Medicare Plus for yourself. That is the key, the optimum plan. Kobe, talk to us about how you do it. What's the response been so far? And there's all kind of changes that have come up because of budget cuts that people ought to know about you guys are offering free advice on this and consultation on this immediately. Sir.
Thanks, Steve. There are always a ton of changes going on in Medicare. At the moment, there are even more changes than normal. The government has announced that they are stopping a prescription drug Medicare plan subsidy earlier than anticipated. What that means is some of the copays and premiums of certain Medicare programs and plans will likely increase this year. So it's really important. It's always important, but it's particularly important this year to make sure that you're looking at your options to see if you could be getting better coverage at a lower price. So at Chapter, we look at every single Medicare option across every plan and make sure that people get the right plan for their needs. We have built a lot of technology, a lot of data modeling to make sure that we're doing right by the posse. It's actually very hard to do it. It's unfortunately not easy to look at every Medicare option to get people on the right plan, but it's tremendously important because it is such a consequential part of people's retirement and part of people's ability to live with the health and wealth they want as they get older.
Just walk me through one more time. Why now? What are these changes? What should people know about, and why should they call today? That's 845 War Room, the hotline just for the War Room Posse. Why? What has happened here that's made these, as complicated as it is and complex it is, kind of on purpose? What has happened here?
Yeah, so the government has decided to end a Part D program subsidy a year earlier than it was anticipated. So the government's going to save about $3.5 billion, which is broadly good for our budget. The flip side of that is the insurance carriers will likely try to charge more for these programs going into the fall. And so people need to make sure that they are checking their Medicare plan to make sure that they are getting the lowest possible cost, because there's likely a better plan and or a lower cost plan available to them. Just most people don't know and most people don't check. So the insurance carriers are really relying on people just kind of being asleep at the wheel. And it's our job to make sure that people get the most money back in their pockets as possible.
845 War Room. Kobe, thank you so much. Thank you for forming the company, and the feedback we've gotten is tremendous. So let's go call it today. 845 War Room. Totally free, no obligation. Sir, thank you so much.
Thank you, Steve.
Feedback is, and of course, the War Room Posse's recommending it to their friends and colleagues and family members. 845 War Room, do it today. I want to re-hit Christian nationalism for a second and bring in Eric Metaxas. Let's go ahead and let
Is Christian nationalism America's most dangerous political movement? That's the case Democratic Congressman Jared Huffman is making in his new book, No Profits, The Fight to Save Democracy from Christian Nationalism. Congressman Huffman writes, quote, "Its theocratic, authoritarian ringleaders, once dismissed as fringe, now wield mainstream power, and they're using it to dismantle secular democracy from within." Merriam-Webster defines Christian nationalism as a political ideology that seeks to incorporate Christian beliefs into government decisions and policies.
What did you see on January 6th? I saw a profusion of religious extremism.
Let me have it. Eric Metaxas, having written the definitive, I guess, modern history of the American Revolution, because it's been on the bestseller list for, I don't know, 10 weeks, or the New York Times bestseller list, without it being carried in Barnes and Noble or having other TV hits on other even conservative networks. This thing on fire, and that's because of word of mouth. People love this book. First off,
it's not
do you find it odd?
It was written by Christian nationalists. Sorry, go ahead.
No, that's okay. My point. You go back to the original document. We just had Barton on here who went back. This changed his life in doing it. But in your research, the power of this book, you understand the sacred tasks they had and trust they had before them, and how seriously they took it. So nothing could defeat them, sir.
They knew that without God's help, they could not win. But we have to think about that, Steve. It's like you're solving for X. They knew that what they were doing was the right thing, but that in the natural, they should lose. On paper, there's no way they could win. But they had a little trick up their sleeve. They believed in God. They believed in a God of history. They believed in a God who intervenes. They depended on it. It's an amazing thing. People talk about faith. You know, Protestants always talk about faith, faith, faith. Well, faith means actually trust. It just doesn't mean some theological, I believe this and this and this. No, it means I actually trust in God. So here you have George Washington and others. They're planning, they're doing everything they can possibly do. But at the end of the day, they know it's not enough. And time and again, as far as they would tell you, as far as George Washington would tell you, God does intervene. That's their plan. Do everything you can, fight, fight, fight. But at the end of the day, if God doesn't, part the Red Sea, our goose is cooked. It happens over and over. And of course, the left wants to call that Christian nationalism. I guess they think George Washington was a Christian nationalist. Abraham Lincoln was a Christian. Everybody's a Christian nationalist who loves America, except for them. But, they hate America, but they have redefined hate as love. And they cannot bear to see any expressions of patriotism. It's kind of funny a thing, because I knew today is the anniversary of the Battle of Long Island, the Battle of Brooklyn. Actually, it's tonight when the British make their move. And so I was rereading the chapter and I thought to myself, this sums up America, is that we are, when we're down, something happens and we win, right? And when we're looking at the space race, we're behind the Russians. Wherever you look at America, you if you didn't know better, you'd say, I think God is on their side. If there's a God, it looks like he's on their side. Now, again, this is not just to say we're better. We have cast our lot with the God of the Bible, and all the people in the revolution, the leaders, the people who end up being the leaders, Washington at the front of the pack, John Adams, they are not shy about talking about this, about saying this. They could not get a 5-minute hit on MS Now or on CNN today, because they would be classified, including Abraham Lincoln, as Christian nationalists, as scary figures, as scary as Steve Bannon or Eric Metaxas. Ooh, they're scary. I mean, it's so preposterous. We have to laugh, and I know you do. It's like, it just is. It's crazy that they persist in doing this. And I think I told you, I went to the Barnes and Noble in my hometown, Danbury, Connecticut. I've been here since the 70s, my hometown. They didn't have a copy of my book. It's 10 weeks on the New York Times list. Today we'll find out if it's 11. But they didn't have a copy. And the woman was kind of like nasty when I asked her about it. And I just thought to myself, what world do we live in? They're basically trying to censor the truth, Steve. That's just why, they're not going to have you on mainstream media talking, because they can't bear the truth. The truth shows them to be liars, to be on the wrong side of history. What happened 250 years ago tonight just one of the most amazing stories. The fact that we survived, we should not have survived. I mean, I could talk about this tomorrow, but it's just like it's an insane story. The revolution should have been over.
But here's the thing:
August
they knew.
27th.
It's just like the media today knows how powerful this idea of Christian nationalism or Christianity back in the public square. The British understood that this was such a danger, they were going to crush it right in the cradle. The Declaration signed less than 60 days ago. And here they have the largest armada in history. They have the largest expeditionary force, 32,000 combat troops, including 8 to 10,000 mercenary Hessians, and they're ready to roll. They didn't come over to New York and say it's going to take us months and months and months. They got over there, they got set up, and tonight they make their move. And this move is going to be a crushing blow to basically destroy the Continental Army, sir.
Well, look, on paper, you got to understand, there's no way they can lose. On paper, there's no way they can lose. And it's funny, too, because I think in my book, I say defending the indefensible. Washington's job was impossible. To defend New York is virtually impossible because New York is nothing but water. It's an archipelago of islands. It's just water everywhere. Long Island is an island. Manhattan is an island. Staten Island is an island. There's water. And guess what? The British have the greatest navy in the history of the world. There's no winning against them. You're defending, waterfront. You can't win. And Washington said, well, we got to do what we got to do, or we're going to do everything we can do. And we're going to see how it goes. And for some reason, and this was the next day, which was tomorrow, 250 years ago, the British have them pinned down. It is over. It is all over. But for some reason that historians will ponder until history ends, General Howe does not finish the job. Nobody can understand why he would do this, but he pauses weirdly. He also does not call his Navy to seal off the East River because by the time this is all over, there's been a rout. Washington's remaining forces are pinned against the East River in Brooklyn. There's nowhere to go. All Howe has to do is send, a few frigates up the East River, and they are absolutely locked in. That you cannot escape. It's over. He doesn't do this, so he doesn't finish the job with his army. His generals were hot to trot. They were like, "Let's go. Let's end it." He says no, and then he does not ask the frigates to come up the East River. Why? No one knows. And so the next day, there's this insane rainstorm. It just stops everything. The winds shift. Now the frigates can't come up the river. Now there's this pause. And this is when Washington makes his great move. And all of Washington's moves, they're counterintuitive. He retreats to advance. It's like he retreats to victory. He basically does the craziest thing you can do. There's nothing else to do, but he says, okay, maybe we can escape across the East River. Now, this is right where the Brooklyn Bridge is today. So if you see the Brooklyn Bridge, that's exactly where this happened. But he had to do this secretly. The British could not know that they're doing this because they would have taken some kind of action. So they do this as soon as it's nighttime on the night of the 27th or 28th. I forget. It's probably the 28th. He does it at night. So it's after this incredible rainstorm that everything hits pause. And he's trying to get the thousands of men across. And at dawn, the sun is rising. It is over. It hasn't gone quickly enough. A fog descends. Anybody who was there, and you can tell the writer of whatever history book the way they write about this, because sometimes they go, oh, it's kind of a nice coincidence. An insane thing happens. I live in New York. I don't see fogs like this ever. This is just a freakish thing happens. A fog descends as the sun is rising so that they have several more hours in which to do what they want to do, this retreat. It is absolutely astonishing. The revolution should have been over at the end of August, 1776, and it was not.
Eric, hang on for 1 second. We're holding to the break. Joe Allen's also going to join us. Michael Pack, 5th year of Abbey. Joe Allen on all things transhumanism. Next in the War of Dolly Parton will take us out.
Just to find the others laughing and making fun of me and my coat of many colors Mama made for me.
Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
The book reads like a novel because it's got cliffhanger after cliffhanger after cliffhanger. You will fully appreciate the revolutionary generation when you're finished this book. And it's not a short book, but it is kind of a beach read because it reads just like a novel. In fact, if you had pitched this, the publisher, if you'd gone and written a screenplay about this, they go, get out of here, man. That's too over the top. Metaxas, you're going to be joining us the rest of the week also. Where do people go and get this book? And where can they buy it for a particularly young person in your life?
Yeah. Well, at this point, I'm asking everybody, please get it from Amazon. They always have the best price, at least I've seen. But also, as revenge against Barnes & Noble, I am blown away that when I walked into the Danbury, Connecticut Barnes & Noble, I said, there's not one copy. They've got stacks of Jill Biden's book and all the other bestsellers. And you think, what are they afraid of? The truth? This is a flat retelling of the amazing birth of the greatest nation in the history of the world. I know we need to be inspired, Steve, and I know that's part of why you have me on here, because we need to know our history. We need to know we've been through this kind of thing before. Our job is to do the right thing, to fight in the right way. God is with us, and that's real. That's not just a nice idea, and it's actually important. So I hope people will get the book, will read the book. The true story is inspiring. It is America at its heart. It's a beautiful story. The good guys win against all odds. You know, when the good guys win, it's kind of inspiring. And we didn't make it up. I didn't say I need to put in a happy ending. The ending is happy. It's just amazing. Happy. And the heroes, Nathan Hale, all these figures, we need to celebrate them. We need to get happy.
Yep. Go to Amazon, get the book. Where do they go to find out where they can see you in the future? Future stops, your writings, all of it. Where do they go?
I'm all over the place. Just go to ericmetaxas.com. We're posting everything on there, ericmetaxas.com. And I need to do some book signings in stores other than Barnes & Noble, so I'll be out there.
And if you get a chance to see Eric in person, either to hear him preach or to talk about the book, make sure you do it. Take advantage of it. Thank you, sir. Appreciate you, brother.
I appreciate you. Thank you.
Really appreciate the book. The book is reframing the way we think about the revolution after a long time. Birch Gold, I want to make sure, particularly with turbulence, gold has been on a roll here recently, but it's not the spot price. It's the pattern recognition. And now with everything going on, you heard Jeff Stein earlier, there's going to be kind of this internal civil war in the Republican Party about economic policy going forward. And remember, we're never going back, but there's going to be a little struggle on that. Now more than ever, you need to understand this. And the way to understand it, go to birchgold.com/Bannon, end of the dollar empire. You get 8 free installments, 9th on the way. Most importantly, you get to talk to Philip Patrick and the team. So go check that out today. Totally free, no obligation. Also free, HomeTitleLock.com, promo code Steve. You get 14 days for the $1 million triple lock protection so you can understand it. They will also give you a free report, a title report. See if anybody's been messing with your title online or otherwise. HomeTitleLock.com, promo code Steve. Talk to Natalie Dominguez and the team. Immerse yourself. Why, for pennies a day, you can stop the nightmare of somebody getting into your title and taking out a hard money loan. Forget selling it. Selling it's always a possibility, but just borrowing against it so that they get the cash and you got to pay it off. That would upset your economic plan and financial plan for the future. Trust me, and the worry and the angst. Joe Allen, there's so much to talk about in all your travels. You got Gates gave a warning this morning, but I want to go. I'm confused about this, and we're going to get more into it after the show. I haven't had time to drill down on it. But the Meta, as evil as Zuckerberg is, as evil as these companies are, and you've did the best thing I've seen done in all media. You went over that day when they were going to testify, and you interviewed these moms and dads and let America know a little bit about them and their children of what happened. You got this case, and I thought this time we had Meta, cornered. The rat was cornered, and somehow the state AGs kind of let him off the hook. I'm just not blown away. When Jim Cramer is saying, hey, it was an existential threat, and this is not this big a deal. This is like small change. Your first thoughts on this, sir?
Yeah, the amount is quite paltry. I mean, it's a little under 17 billion. I think $16.6 billion. It was upward of $1 trillion on the table should it have gone to court. But the real issue here, Steve, I mean, on the one hand, you could call it a sort of a win in the sense that, they did at least get cornered to the point they settled. The issue mainly was addiction and privacy in regard to children. And everyone knows, anyone with any sense knows that these are enormous issues. The real problem is because it's settled, instead of actually going through a full trial, we won't have any of the really hard evidence from inside the company that would have come out in a court case. So you have what you have now. You have Meta settling without admitting guilt, and they're promising to install certain safety features, keeping children from being online too late, time limitations, things like that. And that's all good in a sense. But yes, Steve, I think that without a doubt, they got off, in essence, scot-free. I mean, you have the documents coming from the inside in which they were training their AI to groom children. You have just the widespread effect that it's clearly had on children's socialization, adults' socialization, and for all the talk of spread of misinformation and disinformation, certainly during the era between 2020 and 2023, I think Meta, in their attempt to squash disinformation and misinformation, were in fact some of the largest purveyors of disinformation and misinformation in regard to COVID and vaccination. So yeah, you could call it a tiny little W.
No, it's by the way, misinformation about COVID. Remember, they shut us all down. They deplatformed us. Also, the 2020 election. I mean, Zuckerberg is the railhead of evil. He's the railhead of evil. This guy's pure evil. Shouldn't be hanging around the White House. Shouldn't be going to dinners with the president. This guy's pure evil. But we are moving the needle. I mean, we had these guys. We got to get the details how to get off the hook, and even if it means they are off the hook, because we're going to fight this one like crazy. But you go back, they had Abbott. Jonathan Karl was just eviscerating Abbott the other day on this interview, and we had Brian Harrison on here to kind of break it down about data centers. You got now data centers because here's why: the oligarchs are going to act like the oligarchs until you force them to stop. Because they got all these paid gunslingers, they got every hired gun in the world. They are oligarchs. They act like oligarchs, and they're just going to roll over you until you force them to stop. Now, we are the biggest advocates that we've got to stop the Chinese Communist Party because we have created the entire ecosystem for the Chinese Communist Party even to have an AI industry. Both the education, the training in the labs of Chinese nationals, the education of 350 to 500,000 students, all in advanced technology courses, providing them chips. NVIDIA chips are looking the other way where they're black marketed, and providing all the debt and equity capital, the entire ecosystem. That being said, the data centers are the hottest political issue in the country. Why? People are just not going to have these oligarchs come in, Joe, and ram it down their throats. The little guy standing up and saying, hey, we're not going to do it. Abbott was the biggest cheerleader for data centers. Now he's got a moratorium, and quite frankly, it doesn't even get to what the heart of it is, as Brian Harrison brought out, because he's got the taxpayers of Texas underwriting the data centers with their property taxes and sales taxes. On the flock cameras and the data centers, we've made huge progress, have we not, Joe?
Yes, incredible. But one of the big problems we face now, Steve, I mean, these midterms are going to, insofar as technology is going to be a dominant issue, that's going to revolve around these data centers. And one of the big reasons that people are up in arms about this is because it's directly impacting them. It's right there. It's not something ephemeral like social media. It's not something ephemeral like AI. You've got this physical manifestation of a large-scale technological revolution that creates horrible noise. There's the fear of shooting up the utility rates and drawing out all the water for cooling. But the problem we face here, I think, is that by and large, Republicans are not stepping up to this. One reason is because Republicans, I think, are reflexively big business, right? They believe that defending business against the proles is their task and duty. But another big problem is that a lot of these cats are taking tons of money from the tech companies. So they're basically on the hook. And so what's happening is Democrats are coming out of the woodwork, and some of them have sort of been on this a little bit. AOC has actually been kind of, anti-big tech. She pushed Amazon out of New York and things like that. But a lot of them are just coming out of the woodwork because they know that the public is discontent. They know that Republicans are going to drop the ball on this. And so you have like El Said, you have, on the congressional side, or the current Congress, you have people like Bernie Sanders, AOC, and just in general, as we see the Democratic Socialists rise up, this will be one of their leverage points. This will be one of the ways that they're able to garner a ton of votes. And I think it won't necessarily be because of overwhelming support for Democrats. It will be because so many people feel betrayed by Republicans.
Well, Tom Tiffany in the governor's race in Wisconsin were winning because of Tom Tiffany's stance on data centers. Actually, Rogers has called for a moratorium also. He's gotten with the program. He's called for at least a 1-year moratorium. So he's gotten old-time religion. In Ohio, we're getting smoked because of the data center situation there. Anyway, stick around. There's so much more. Bill Gates has given us kind of a phony warning, a lightweight warning. Joe Allen's going to stick with us. Dolly Parton takes us out.
I cannot compete with you, Jolene. He talks about you in his sleep. There's nothing I can do to keep from crying when he called your name, Jolene.
War Room. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
If you got an extension for October 15th, that's hurtling towards you. There's no more chances after that. 866-513-5516. Tax Network USA team is standing by for $49. They can pull your federal tax return IRS file, because you had to file to get an extension. They can pull that, do the back of the envelope, and tell you the bid and the ask between what the IRS is going to say you're going to owe and what you really owe. So check it out today. $49. You get the IRS file pulled. They go through it. October 15th is going to be upon you quickly. Don't wait. Tax Network USA, 866-513-5516. That's the hotline. Make sure you take advantage of it. Also, All Family Pharmacy, allfamilypharmacy.com/Bannon. You get 10% off. Go there today, allfamilypharmacy.com/Bannon. Talk to Michael Kunstler's team. You don't have total medical freedom until you're free from the drugstore chains and the big pharma distribution apparatus. Allfamilypharmacy.com, Bannon/Bannon. You get Bannon 10. You get 10% off. Check it out today. Joe Allen, first off, Dolly Parton, an icon. You were a rigger before you became the head of the editor for transhumanism at the War Room. That's a lateral transfer. Any stories in Nashville? You riggers always know what's going on. Talk to me about Dolly Parton.
Yeah, I'm actually here in the Capitol now, and it's pretty somber, I would say, as far as, you've got the flags at half-mast at the Municipal Auditorium. Nearby, you have a memorial up. Listening to the radio, of course, it's just, endless outpouring of, grief and celebration of life and all of that. And as a kid, I spent a lot of time at Dollywood. And of course, all the kind of country folk saw Dolly Parton as this, like a family success story, like your cousin finally made it and made the big time. And, given the relationships around here, maybe she is a cousin to most of us, who knows? So, one of the stories I'd like to tell you, Steve, when I was on this massive tour right after I graduated from BU, 2017, going all over the U.S., and we had this production assistant. I think now the PC term is tour coordinator, a British woman. She was extraordinarily jaded, right? Like, she's very funny and all that, but just really jaded. And she had been at this business for decades. And so she had almost nothing good to say about any major star. Most of it was salacious gossip or, horrific, incriminating stories that if it was told, then these guys would either be drugged to prison or given a membership in the Illuminati. But she toured with Dolly Parton for 2 or 3 years and said that she was the most wonderful woman, just person that she had ever met. But as an employer, she was extremely understanding. She wanted the job done, but she was very understanding, very generous. At one point, the British PA in question had fallen on hard times, and Dolly Parton just gave her the money to get her through, never asked for it back. So, this is just a roadie lore, but the lore around Dolly Parton is very different than most of the other artists. By all accounts, she was as sweet and kind and as generous as you hear in the news.
And a tough as nails businesswoman too. I mean, her music publishing. Remember, what did she consider herself? A songwriter, and she wouldn't. They had the opportunity to give Elvis the. For that huge hit song, she says, no, I'm going to record this myself. I'm going to hold it. And then later on, Whitney Houston got it. But she was just a tough, most songwriters just get ripped off. And she went through some very tough times in the industry. Nashville is I would say this, Nashville's a Darwinian business environment. Would you say that, Joe Allen?
Yeah, without a doubt. Socially Darwinian, maybe even, it's only lacking eugenics, though. Unfortunately, it seems to be pretty dysgenic around here, but yes.
Unreal. Okay, let's get back to your current profession, which is warning people about artificial intelligence and transhumanism. Bill Gates, and this is very important. Drudge got it on his Mac Daddy. Huge interview in the New York Times. Bill Gates, after pushing this for decades, is now giving a warning, given conversations he's had at the Frontier Labs and what he knows is going on in the Frontier Labs. Joe, is this a warning or is this Bill Gates trying to get himself off the hook, sir?
I think that he's certainly backpedaling because he senses the danger. I also worry, Steve, that he's positioning himself to be a dominant voice in the regulation argument. If there's no problem, there's nothing to regulate. Well, now he's bringing out all the problems people have been talking about for a decade plus that he has conveniently ignored for the most part. And suddenly he's concerned about the potential of AI to produce horrific bioweapons, cyber attacks, the problem of labor replacement and automation, robotics. And he's also, Steve, this is what's really rich. He's worried now about the psychological impact of these digital systems on childhood development and young people in general. Well, Bill Gates was among those who argued every child on Earth should be given advanced AI tutors. The Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation has poured gazillions of dollars into ensuring that places like Africa, where the underserved communities in America, that everyone possible has a laptop, everyone possible now has some sort of AI system from which they can learn. And now he's worried that this might rot their brains. So it could be, I guess somewhere beneath that strange facade and that sweater, Bill Gates has a human heart beating, but I suspect more lizard-like motivations. I think that he probably sees the writing on the wall in regard to regulation. And unlike many of the Republicans who had referenced before, sees a real good opportunity to get in there and do what he's done for so often, which is funnel money through NGOs to affect American and global policy. And one more thing on it, Steve, just with the bioweapons, it's also pretty rich that he had forever warned of this pandemic, and then of course when they got COVID, he was the first guy to ensure that his solutions for a potential pandemic came through. I really wonder on this one, we're going to see more cyber attacks for sure. I think the containment breaking is just the beginning. I think it's pretty likely that some sort of bio weapon potential will be realized. But one way or the other, you're going to have Bill Gates there with all of that money, all of these experts, his constellation of experts that revolve around him. And I think that he's going to be among those who just jump in and try to push regulation that will maybe do some good, but for the most part, will work to benefit his companies, his ideology, and others like him.
One thing I want to go through these because he did lay out the containment issue. He said it's much farther advanced in his discussion with people. They're much more afraid of it than they're saying publicly. Correct. This is why he wanted to come out in this big interview with the New York Times. Bioweapons, which also the Frontier Labs have warned about. In fact, all the heads, I think, have said their number one fear is AI creating new bioweapons. The children's huge pivot from what he's been doing as foundation, saying, hey, the agentic AIs and AIs on education could actually be harmful. So that's a pivot. But other people have been talking about that also. He did touch what I call the third rail in this, because all the labs, I think, have consistently now kind of formed a Praetorian Guard around the mass layoffs. One of the most shocking things of his, he said, hey, the mass layoffs are coming, and on a societal basis, we have to be prepared for that. Most of the folks in back of this, because I think they realize, like, there's been a populist revolt against data centers because it's a physical manifestation. Like there's now a beginning of a revolt about these flock cameras in the surveillance state that's being set up. People, when they start seeing or understand there's going to be mass layoffs, there'll be another populist revolt where people are going to want not just a little bit of cash tossed to them, but actually some, I think, real ownership in this so they get a piece of the action here. His warning about the mass layoffs is different than everybody else. They've kind of all, put that off to the side. We don't want to talk about that. We don't know if it's happened. Gates is actually giving a warning that this is in fact coming, sir.
Yeah, you definitely have backpedaling from people like Sam Altman. He was talking about the Moore's law of everything, in which all labor will basically be done by AI, and all the other sort of elements of a digital god. Now he's much more moderate in his approach, restrained. He's like, well, it'll have effects, but we'll do it gradually enough that humans will have a role. As far as I know, Elon Musk is still out there talking crazy. I mean, he's talking about the end of the world via AI. We need to really ramp up getting to space before it eats everything. But with Gates, before whenever somebody has a sudden conversion like this, we've known forever that people behind the scenes have talked about the potential for bioweapons killing people and cyber attacks and the greater replacement of all labor. We've known that. They've a lot of times been openly talking about it. They can get away with it now, Steve, because the most aggressive predictions that by now we would already see this huge percentage of white-collar labor wiped out, well, that didn't happen. And it's one of the problems, I think, with the rhetoric around this. When the rhetoric gets pushed to an extreme and then it doesn't actually happen, much like the metaverse, and it doesn't actually happen, then people become complacent, they become comfortable. I worry about that with the data centers because, for a long time, the biggest talking points were the utilities, the electricity, and the water. The water problem in the most sophisticated data centers is basically solved. They can recycle it. The electricity problem will be solved in a sense by having independent sources of electricity for the data centers. The real problem, the problem of creating bots that are intended to fuse with human beings in the best case scenario, or replace them in the next worst case scenario, or destroy them in the worst case scenario. Yeah, I think that the more they push the more extreme stuff on the data centers and it doesn't really happen, then the energy will go. I think that it's going to be really important, just in the same thing with labor and all of that, that people are properly educated on what the data centers do, how damaging they are, what they're actually doing, and especially to keep in mind that the purpose of these data centers isn't just to keep your internet on, but to train AIs for the explicit purpose of either forcing you into merging with them or replacing you entirely.
Joe, when you talk about education, your writings are a place everybody should start. Where do they go for all your content? Because you're putting up some great stuff.
Joebot.xyz. You can subscribe there. I've just got off the road. I've been traveling for 2.5 weeks among the crazy techno libs and the Xeno right. And there'll be a big piece, a little teaser coming up on my site, but hopefully a piece appearing in one of the noble publications left on the right with print editions.
Joe Allen, good to have you back. You're in the Capitol in Nashville today. Very solemn. Flags at half staff. Joe Allen, good to have you back. Look forward to talking to you. Everybody go to the site. One more time, where's the site?
Joebot.xyz, and of course my social media handle at JOEBOTXYZ. And I'll be singing Jolene all day. All of us are.
See you, sir. Back from the road. Short break. Michael Pack on the 5th anniversary of the Abbey Gate massacre.
I have all the riches my pockets would hold. I feel so wealthy with treasures untold. If teardrops were pennies and heartaches were gold.
But teardrops aren't pennies.
And heartaches aren't gold.
Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
You love our contributor, Jim Rickards. He's got a special for you for his flagship newsletter, Strategic Intelligence. People rave about this in commemoration of the 250th anniversary of the country. $17.76 for Strategic Intelligence for 3 months. If you don't love it, you call Jim. He gives you your money back. $17.76 as a trial for 3 months for Strategic Intelligence. Best deal they've ever given. RickardsWarning.com. RickardsWarning.com. Go check it out today. Basically no risk. If you don't love it, he'll give you your money back. 5th anniversary of the massacre at Abbey Gate. Michael Pack has made an incredible film. Let's go and play a clip from it.
I've concluded that it's time to end America's longest war.
The people woke up in the morning and thought, hey, we need to get out of this country. It was like water pouring over a rock.
And it was hand-to-hand fighting. I actually thought that we weren't going to make it.
Get him up! Get up!
The mix between the feces, the blood, the decaying bodies. People would beg you to kill them.
Some civilians just throwing babies over.
It became clear that an attack was imminent.
There's a f***ing ID, bro.
From the writer and director of The Last 600 Meters, Michael Pack. Amazing film, sir. Talk to us about it.
Well, it's an amazing topic, really. I mean, it is true that this is the 5th anniversary of the massacre at Abbey Gate. And we tell the story, as even that little teaser reveals, from the decision to go to zero by Joe Biden in April of 2021, early in his administration, all the way forward until the last planes leave at the end of August. And I think a key thing about it that is often lost is how preventable it all was. In the first part of the film, we look at the bad decisions, Biden's decision, the decision to leave Bagram, the decision not to support the Afghan allies, the decision to leave hardware behind, and again. But in the end, the net of it all was the Taliban, surround Kabul, they take over Kabul. And then after they seize Kabul, as you could see even in the trailer, suddenly people stream into the airport because they are afraid the Taliban is going to kill them. And so the two things that we really focus on there are that, all right, they can't clear the airport. There they are running to the gates. Their airplanes cannot take off and land, as Admiral Vaisley says in the film, mission failure loomed. They couldn't do the evacuation. The Marines tried for a night and a day to clear the airport, but they couldn't do it. And they couldn't do it because the people in the airport figure if they leave, the Taliban will kill them. You can see them clinging to C-17s and falling to the ground. They're so desperate. So nothing the Marines did. They shot in the air. They butted them with their rifles. They tried to use non-lethal force. People aren't going to leave because they're afraid of dying. So the military brought in the zero units that had been trained by the CIA and under the CIA control and under the control of Afghan intelligence. And they cleared the airport, as one of our guys said, in a couple of hours. So how did they do it? What did they do that the Marines couldn't do? Well, they shot into crowds and ran them over with cars. So they're killing people. So now the calculus changes. Afghans figure, hey, well, look, I'm going to be killed if I stay here. I might as well leave. So then they leave. But we have to face the fact that we, the American people, had our military and our CIA oversee the murder of innocent civilians. I mean, it's a shocking thing. I'm not sure they had alternatives, but it's still a horrible thing to contemplate. And our Marines that we interviewed had to stand there and watch and do nothing. So they finally clear the airport, and then they're outside the gates. And everyone remembers, I think, the footage of them outside these gates struggling to get in. You can see it even in the teaser. They're pushing. They're throwing babies. I mean, it's like a hellscape, as we say. And the Marines at the gates have a life and death decision to make about people, and they are haunted by that. So, and a clearest example, I think, is that people come into the airport and the State Department says, well, you can admit people with U.S. passports and special immigrant visas, but not their families. So young Marines, 18, 19, 20-year-old Marines, are ushering women and children out of the gate, back out where the Taliban will kill them. And the next day, the State Department says, well, oops, now families can go too. So these Marines think, we had these people killed, and the next day they're okay. So this is what's called moral injury, a term you are probably familiar with, Steve, but I was not. And it means participating in or witnessing something that runs counter to your values. It's not like PTSD, where you're in a battle situation and you witness the horrors of battle, your buddy getting his head blown off. But this is different. This is where you do something you think is wrong. And these people are haunted by it forever and to today. And I don't think they get the help and the support they need because they're not heroes and the military would rather forget about them. So I want to honor them this day, as well as the 13 service members and many Afghans who were killed in the Abbey Gate bombing, to say nothing of the even larger number of civilians and other Marines and soldiers who were wounded.
What I want to do is have people have a day or two to watch this and then bring you back and we'll show some clips. Where do they go today on the 5th anniversary to see this?
We released it today. They can go to WSJ.com or the Wall Street Journal YouTube page and search for The Path to Zero. It has its own page with the other films that we've done on the Wall Street Journal at WSJ.com/opinion docs. And I should say they're all free, not behind the Wall Street Journal's paywall. Or they can go to Palladium Pictures. You can see it behind me, palladiumpictures.com, and search for any of our films, including the Wall Street Journal films, including the ones I've done with you, Steve, that are still available and up there.
This is a 1-hour film. The Path to Zero is 1 hour and it's totally free?
Totally free. Totally free, not behind the paywall.
We're gonna make sure everybody
we all
sees
think it's important that people watch it and honor these people. And we have a website there where one of the Marines that's suffering from moral injury started a foundation. I hope people support him, actually. There's really just not enough done to help them. I mean, the reason really is, if you're wounded in battle, even if you're one of the 13 that were killed in Abbey Gate, the Marine Corps and the military want to celebrate you. You're heroes. But those people that had to make these life or death decisions, what are you going to do? You can't give people a medal for taking women and children out to be killed. But we asked them to do it. They did it for us. They're serving us, and now they're suffering. And we really need to support them and help them.
Michael Pack, thank you. We're going to make sure the Warrior Posse sees it. We'll have you back on, play some clips, and talk it through. Great job, sir, as usual. Dolly Parton will take us out. The Charlie Kirk Show is next. We're going to be back at 5. Natalie Winters and Philip Patrick will join them. See you then.